What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So it looks like the Xbox Series X is now finding its way out to retail stores in preparation of that November release, of course. And now we're seeing images of the overall retail box leak out online in a warehouse on tons of pallets. And the box looks pretty cool. But then on top of that, all of a sudden, a full unboxing with the retail box in the frame and all of this shows up online, then gets pulled down. We're gonna go over all of that here today. Also, it looks like the Joy-Con controllers are seeing a price cut from Nintendo, currently in one region, but it could possibly spread to other regions as well. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton. And if you're brand new here, hit the red subscribe button down below. And we're gonna start today with Ruffian Games and Rockstar, because it looks like Rockstar has now actually bought Ruffian Games, who already had ex-Rockstar developers there who worked on things like Manhunt and some of the older Grand Theft Auto games. But you can see this tweet here that points out, yes, it looks like they have bought Ruffian and turned it into Rockstar Dundee. Now, Ruffian kind of makes sense for Rockstar. I just mentioned that they had, of course, ex-Rockstar developers there who probably already know how things work with Rockstar, and most likely they know some people there, and it'll be much easier to kind of integrate them in to kind of get with the workflow. But Ruffian Games seems to be fairly good at running support for different projects. They've worked on the Master Chief Collection. They developed Crackdown 2, so they have experience with open world games. And keep in mind, we see Rockstar rolling towards next generation with Grand Theft Auto 5, and I mean, come on, Grand Theft Auto 6, right? That's gonna be big when that gets announced, and I could see Ruffian being there to help support the studio rolling into that, and that's kind of what I see this acquisition as right now. It's mostly them bringing in more people to help develop some of these really big games or move games like Grand Theft Auto 5 over. I've seen some people hoping that this means that they could go back to like the vault of Rockstar and get some really old games and bring them up to things like the next Xbox and the PlayStation 5 and all of this. I just don't really see it that way. I think this is mostly them bringing in a support studio just to help with the run-up for Grand Theft Auto 6 that hopefully we see like in the next year or two, but we'll see on that. Also, here's a pretty cool addition for the Xbox Series X. It's something that Microsoft did with the One X a little bit, but check this tweet out here. This is from Bryce Johnson, who says, inclusive design tidbit. He suggested we put tactile indicators for the blind over the ports of the Xbox Series X. Also helps for reach-around cabling. Caitlin Jones worked with the design team and our community. It's not a complete solution, but we'll see how it does and learn. And you can see they basically have several different dots over different ports on the back, and they have the HDMI out with kind of the one solid, like rectangular bump there. That's what they've already done with the One X. The HDMI port that you need to plug into the back of the One X to get signal out to your TV, because remember, the Xbox One had two HDMI ports for everyone who still runs cable TV through it. That way you could, of course, not have to rip the entire box out just to look to see which one is in and out for the HDMI ports. This is good, as they say, if you want to slide your Xbox Series X into your entertainment center and not have to kind of pick it up and flip it around and see where everything goes. You just have to, I guess, look at it, I guess maybe the instruction manual or something, or if you have it memorized, which set of dots would correspond to which port. It's just helpful, of course, for not having to rip the whole thing out. Oh, and it seems that Level 5 Games is essentially shuttering operations in North America. This was something put out by Games Industry, you can see here, and it says Level 5 has virtually halted operations in North America. Sources say Level 5 International America, Abby, have been running with a skeleton crew since August 2019, with multiple sources familiar with the matter. Both Level 5 International America and the company's spinoff office, Level 5 Abby, began winding down operations in the middle of last year, part of which included laying off the majority of both offices' staff. And that is a shame, obviously, because people are losing their jobs there. But Level 5 now, it's been strange with them in localization for things like Yokai Watch. A lot of people are still waiting for Yokai Watch 4, I think. That's just, nothing's really been said about it since like a year or two ago with its localization. So it did seem a little strange, and now we're hearing about how they've been running with a skeleton crew for like over a year now. Yeah, it seems like it just wasn't working out here, or they're going to mostly work in the Japanese market and look for maybe companies that want to publish and help localize outside of Japan into like the US and other Western markets. That's what I could see with Level 5, but it's not great when you see a company like that downsize and then bring into question the idea of their games even making it outside of Japan. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. We're starting right away with the Xbox Series X because we are now less than a month away from next-gen consoles launching. And it's exciting because we're getting very, very close to the launch. And that means we will start to see some images leak out of, for example, a pallet of retail boxes stuffed with Xbox Series X systems that you can see here posted over on Reddit. And it looks good. Now, this would hit a lot different if Halo Infinite was, of course, coming out alongside of it, as it was clearly planned all over the place. You see Taco Bell doing promotion with Halo. We see it on the back of the Xbox Series X launch retail boxing. Yeah, it's a shame, but the box itself looks really, really cool. I guess what their big launch title that's only going to be next gen for the Xbox is like Yakuza Like a Dragon. And then I guess you technically have next gen experiences with things like Assassin's Creed, maybe Watch Dogs. We'll see how Cyberpunk runs without the next gen patch being there right away. But yeah, unfortunately, Halo Infinite not being there is a shame because it would have been big, right? With it being right there on the box. Maybe next year for that one. But then after this went out there and we figure that they'll start making their way to stores now, showing up in the warehouse, a person actually posted an unboxing online. It hit YouTube. It was a fairly small channel that when I saw it, and it was strange that someone just randomly had an Xbox Series X in the retail boxing ready to unpack and show off. And then we, of course, realized that it was also in the warehouse. And I mean, you could kind of put two and two together and realize why I'm not showing you that video here, because one, it was ripped down. So it went private. Hard to say if that's because they got in trouble for it or not, but you start to realize maybe what happened here, the Xbox falls off the back of a truck or something. I mean, come on. They can't really play it off too well. If this was Among Us, we would have hit the emergency meeting and they'd have been out in space right away. I am curious if Microsoft is doing something about that leaked system. Because remember, we had something like this with the Switch, where the Switch somehow leaked out like early, and then we found out that it was like stolen, and it ended up being a whole situation there too, where I think when Nintendo retrieved the system from that person, it was some wild stuff there. So I'm not really sure what the backstory is here with this leaked Xbox Series X. A lot of people, like I said, assume that it found its way out of the warehouse on its own, right? But we'll see if anything comes from that. But I have to say, the retail boxing looks great. It's a shame that Halo isn't there because it is printed all over that box, but looking forward to it next year. And again, you'll probably see more images, of course, coming out online of the Series X packed up, ready to go, and showing up in retail stores next month. Next up, let's talk about the Joy-Con controller that has been under heavy scrutiny with the Joy-Con drift situation with class action lawsuits. And of course, we know that the president of Nintendo themselves had sort of apologized for any inconvenience, but they can't exactly say Joy-Con drift because it is an ongoing situation in the courtroom and Nintendo cannot admit fault, or they've basically lost right away with that. So it was strange for a lot of people to see Nintendo start to cut the price of the Joy-Con itself in Japan. You could see here Video Games Chronicle went through some of the different conversions for the currency and all of this, but we can see it appears to be a 16.5% drop in price from 4,480 yen, or $43, down to $36 or 3,740 yen. And this is for all different variants, all the different colors, Joy-Cons and all of this, but it looks like the pair of Joy-Con controllers is still the same price. So I guess in Japan, at least, it makes sense just to buy each one separately, which is kind of neat because then you can mix and match and get whatever color scheme you want. They have technically more access to colors there because they even have the website where you can go on there and you can mix and match different colors to a Switch when you order it and customize it. That's still something that I would like to see them do more, like worldwide. That would be really, really cool, where you build your Switch and put your Joy-Cons and grips and all of this stuff together in different colors, kind of customize it. Sort of like what Microsoft has with their Xbox Controller Design Lab, but even that's going away for now, and I guess that's coming back for next gen. Anyway, a lot of people are thinking this could have something to do with the Joy-Con drift situation, and the only way I can connect the two is if they are rolling out new Joy-Cons at some point and they're doing some preliminary work to get rid of the current stock of Joy-Cons. That's the only thing I can think of. And even then, would they raise the price back up if the Joy-Cons still look the same and they only had an internal change? That would be a weird thing for them to do unless they branded it something like New Nintendo Joy-Con. That is something that Nintendo would probably do, though, new Nintendo Joy-Con. Anyway, it'll be curious to see if they actually do this in other regions as well, because I guess in the US, it's $50 for a single Joy-Con or $80 for the pair. Maybe they take that and mark it down. Walmart's already been playing around with some of these prices, but maybe they say, oh yeah, a single Joy-Con is $40 now, and the pair is the $70. It wouldn't be a bad thing to do because the Joy-Cons are getting a little older and technology advances, parts become cheaper. But really, if they charge the same price and they just fix the issue with the drift in the Joy-Con, I think people would be okay with that for now. My concern is they would have to change so much about it that it would change the core functionality of that joystick and it wouldn't work in the current Joy-Con. So they would have to wait till next gen to fix it or introduce radically different Joy-Con controllers. I mean, they could still probably fit. They would just be an obvious upgrade or change to the current ones. But at least for now in Japan, they have cut the prices, and we'll see if that kind of spills over to other regions. Next up, let's talk about PlayStation 5 and Burger King, interestingly. It looks like Burger King, I think, is gonna have some sort of contest for the PlayStation 5. We, of course, talked about Taco Bell and the Xbox, and it's common for this to happen around the launch of these different systems where they will pair with fast food places and different chains and stuff to give away different systems if you buy X amount of food that is that's obviously terrible for you, but it's linked to the system, so people just buy it in hopes of winning it. And I will say, Nate, Direct Feed Games did win I think it was a PlayStation 4, I think, or what is an Xbox? He won a game console through Taco Bell. So it's happened before, and he still has it. So it's not impossible, apparently. But it does look like Burger King will do something, as they tweeted out a video, and then PlayStation went ahead and grabbed that and tweeted that out. And it looks like the king is opening up a bag and a blue light's coming out, and it makes that UI startup sound that we heard back in June, I believe, on the stream for PlayStation when they were first showing it off. So it looks like they are probably unveiling something there. People were wondering if Burger King was now going to unveil the PlayStation 5 user interface. Probably not. No, they're just going to launch some sort of contest, some sort of campaign alongside with PlayStation, and maybe that'll drive sales for them with how hyped up the PS5 is currently and the fact that it's hard to even get a pre-order now. But I guess if you buy enough Burger King, you have a chance to win a PlayStation 5. That would start on the 15th of October, so in just a couple of days. And in our last bit of news, let's talk a bit about that PlayStation 5 backwards compatibility, but let's talk about the list that is not compatible with the PlayStation 5. Remember they released a list, had like Joe's Diner. Unfortunately, Shadow Complex Remastered, which is a game that I would like to see be backwards compatible because it is a very good game. But there were a few games on there. I didn't think people would care as much about the other games that were on there then, but it looks like the developer of one wants to actually fix it and make it compatible. Now you can see this comment here. This is from the DWVR developer. That is one of the games that's on the list, saying, "I'm working on a patch to fix the issue. Hopefully it can arrive before PS5 releases." When questioned about what changes needed to be made, the developer says, "Can't really go into much detail. The game just doesn't launch on PS5 for some odd reason. Quite weird given I'm using Unreal Engine like so many other games that do work fine." And it is odd because people were wondering when they looked at that list, what exactly are these games doing that are not allowing it to launch on the PlayStation 5? It could be, I guess, something small in there, maybe a bug. Maybe Sony just said, well, there's this issue and it just won't work. And what's cool is, it seems like if the developer wants to go back, they can fix it, they can patch it. Maybe they have guidelines that are under embargo or some sort of contract that's been filled out that's like, oh, you can't talk about this SDK or these exact details. And that's why they're not going into so much detail. But it is hopeful if somebody really wants to go back and it's their game and they can fix it, that they can go back and patch it. Makes me wonder if, who does Shadow Complex Remastered? That's Epic Games. I don't know if anyone else would work with it, if they would go back and do something with Shadow Complex Remastered to make that work. Hard to say there, but the list itself is small enough to where I don't really know anyone's gonna go calling for some of these games to work on the PS5, but it's good to know, I guess, if something else pops up there going forward, that it can be patched and added to backwards compatibility. Interesting. I wonder if more details will come out about what exactly is keeping something like this game off of the PS5. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Bird That Knows What's Good, saying, we always hear about the respawn loading times being great, but no one mentions the outrageously long load times after completing a mission. You think Jin is standing there with his horse for fun. It's a veiled loading screen and takes a minute. Not a knock on the game, love it, but I never hear anyone mention it. That's because load times, one of the biggest things that's happened this generation is to hide load times wherever you can. And try to make it so that, of course, we know you're running, all of a sudden you're walking. And it's like painfully slow for some reason. There's nothing holding you back that you see. It's really just the game saying, hey, slow down. We have to load some stuff that you can't see far off in the distance. Or, oh wow, there sure are a lot of very small passages that I have to squeeze through and it takes a while. And that was very obvious in Final Fantasy VII Remake. Remember that? Like every time you like slowly slide through a little passageway, it was very obvious. In the Star Wars game from last year that Respawn did, that was one where I noticed it quite a bit fall in order, where you had to keep going through small little passageways. It took a while to get through. So I think there are going to be a lot of revelations made into the next generation where those load times, those loading tricks won't be needed anymore. And I'm actually curious if the games will be altered heavily because of that. Like you said, there's a lot of small little spots where loading time is being hidden, and then you eliminate that. And it just makes me wonder if they have ideas that they couldn't implement before because of those hidden loading screens that they have to put in there and kind of work around. Either way, that's the thing I'm most excited for, is to see how these solid state drives can influence gameplay and level design going into the next generation with the Xbox Series X and the Series S and the PlayStation 5. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit the like button, really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about today, whether it's the Joy-Con price drop in Japan. Do you think that's going to work out to other regions, or do you think Nintendo is working to fix the Joy-Cons right now and they're kind of offloading some of their old stock, getting ready to stock the new Nintendo Joy-Con? Let me know what you think about that idea down below. And then, of course, what about the Xbox Series X retail packaging? It sure is a shame that Halo is not there day one, with it being plastered all over the back of it, but it leaking out online. What do you think happened in that situation? And then, of course, what about the Burger King and PlayStation crossover? Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.